In today's video, we're diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at major, well, not so major anymore, but was major at one point, Hurricane Aaron. I think it maybe is actually flipping between Category 2 and Category 3 at times here. This was once a Category 5 hurricane down there in the Caribbean, and now it's causing some impacts to coastal North Carolina, coastal Virginia, and maybe even areas like Maryland and Delaware a little bit. The entire East Coast is seeing elevated waves and some storm surge from this storm. The only areas that really expect notable storm surge would be North Carolina and Virginia. Thankfully, none of which is expected to be really catastrophic. I know the Outer Banks can see bad impacts from even minor things from these storms, so they are seeing some major impacts there. Outside of the storm, though, we're going to talk about the rest of the tropics. We're also going to be talking about those much cooler than normal conditions expected to move into the eastern states here, not so far from now anymore. We're going to be showing you where the Climate Prediction Center from the National Weather Service is now on board with that in the 6 to 10 day outlooks and the 8 to 14 day outlooks. And we're going to be talking about the overall storminess happening around the nation. So we're obviously looking at this really stunning satellite imagery. I don't know why it's kind of stuttering a little bit, but regardless, you can kind of get the bigger picture. Thankfully, this storm has actually began to kind of curve eastward a little bit ahead of schedule, even from what the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center has been calling for, which is interesting because this storm has been further south and further west than the track the whole way through, pretty much up until this exact point. So this is exactly what we were talking about yesterday. It's easy to assume that if the whole time it's been further west than they've been forecasting, that it will continue to do that. But if the weather worked that way, it'd be easy, right? It'd be so easy to predict, but it can do one thing for the whole time and then completely switch up on you. And that's why you got to kind of stay on your toes and pay attention the whole way through. So we're seeing a very unexpected, just real opposite shift of what we've been seeing. And we could see a lot of activity in the form of showers, even some downpours happening here in southeastern Virginia earlier today. Not a lot of wind here yet. But there is impacts, cloudiness, showers. Again, the coastal areas seeing waves, elevated waves, and storm surge. And we do expect to see a little bit of some worse rainfall overnight into tomorrow morning, and at least tropical storm force winds throughout eastern North Carolina and Virginia. Looking at the whole of kind of the tropics here, we can see that this area here, this red one, has a 10% chance of development over the next 2 days, but a 70% chance of development over the next 7. So this one gets a high chance of development. Pretty interesting. Thankfully, this one has completely shifted away. We originally saw models showing this one go way, way, way eastward into the Gulf. Then they suddenly started to kind of show a little bit more curvature. And then now they've kind of settled on a much further west solution, or further east solution, I should say, than originally anticipated. So this goes to show that in the long range, obviously, we could see a huge variety of potential outcomes, because it could have been the opposite. And that's what's really important to note here. It could have originally been expected to curve out to sea, and then, the next day, and then the next day. And that's why I always tell you guys, in the long range, nothing is impossible, and we have to consider every possibility. This is a prime example right there. Looking at this next one, also coming off of Africa, we sit at a 40% chance of development over the next 2 days and over the next 7. So that's going to be the next wait and kind of watch and see one that we're going to be just waiting for. Obviously, this one would take days and maybe even weeks to ever really pose a risk to the Caribbean or the United States or anything like that, if it ever did. So we'll be waiting and seeing with that one. Let's go ahead and move into some of our more model guidance. First things first, we're taking a look at that 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service. And as you can see, this is as of August 20th. This goes from August 26th to August 30th. We get this kind of healthy looking positive P&A look out west here where there's warmer temperatures. And clearly they expect this really, really intense cool down here in the central and eastern states, as we've been predicting for probably about a week now. This is coming in the form of an Arctic blast moving down from Alaska and northern Canada straight through the rest of Canada and into the United States. Very interesting stuff. Even looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which typically their confidence is lower because further out, so we get these lighter shades of reds and blues. But we can get a similar premise here, a little bit more warmth along the northwest as opposed to just the entire west. But we do see the heart of these cooler temperatures still kind of sitting over the Midwest, Ohio Valley, kind of deeper south areas, Mid-Atlantic, those types of regions for August 28th through September 3rd. So there's a really good shot. We're going to end August and begin September on a very fall-like note. We've been discussing that for days now. I'm super stoked for it. I can't wait for just sweater weather, pumpkins. I'm a sucker for that stuff, guys. I seriously am. The seasons and the holidays, and I don't know. It might have kind of sparked my love for the weather because part of it is these storms and events and snow events and all that stuff, but part of it really is the seasonal change that occurs that is my love for it. And I feel like that's a little bit more unique, but I definitely really enjoy that part of the changing seasons. Looking at the 7-day period, I wanted to point this out. This was our last more major cooldown that we saw, and this was for that first week of August. I'm going to start kind of showing the verification more again. I did this throughout the fall and winter because so many people will comment about how I was wrong about something, and I like to show the verification. If I'm wrong, obviously I'll admit it. I'll kind of explain why that happened, but a lot of the time when it's correct, I like to just show the exact dates and the exact results. And in this case, we did see this major cooldown throughout, again, the central states and eastern states. It looks very similar to what we're expecting here at the end of August and into September, and that's why I wanted to mention it. I think something similar to this could take place. Interestingly enough, this goes to show these P&A events. It doesn't have to be the western United States because it's really western North America. We saw really warm temperatures over the Four Corner states in western Mexico and also western Canada. A little cooler for the central or the western United States, but it's enough of a positive P&A to shove this cooler air into these states. So this one definitely verified that first week of August. We're having very similar thoughts here again, like I said, for the end of August into September, and we'll look back on it the same way and see how that verified. Going to be interesting to see. Let's take a look at some of this storminess, though. The European model, we all got to kind of give it a hand because it has certainly been very spot on for the most part with Aaron, especially when compared to any of the other major models. This storm ended up being hundreds of miles further west than really anticipated at most points in the forecast for models like the GFS model, among many other hurricane models. The European model has been the most consistently west model that we've really seen. For some reason, guys, forgive me if this is not the case, but I feel like I've been mixing and matching my wests and easts throughout the video. Like I keep feeling like I say west when I should be saying east, and then I go to talk about west, and I'm like, wait, I just said that. So if I do that, forgive me. You guys know which way is east and west. You probably know what I'm talking about. But most of the other models were further east out to sea, and this European model was the furthest west one. I think where I get tripped up is when I'm talking about offshore of the East Coast. I feel like east, I associate it with the East Coast, so further away, I associate with being west. I don't know, kind of stupid of me, but it's always when I'm talking about this region. I never mistake that really anywhere else, hardly. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, so let's watch it play out. We see this is as of tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. We see some precipitation, again, mostly eastern North Carolina. This is going to be the peak of the winds overnight tonight into tomorrow. I do expect, obviously, we do see this kind of counterclockwise motion with the storms, we always do. And I do expect as this low gets further north of these areas is when the wind will be the worst because it's going to be swinging around like this. I really do think probably around this point, again, morning time into the afternoon is really when we could see this downward motion really violently, especially for Virginia and areas along the Chesapeake Bay. And here I think that could be the peak, but also eastern North Carolina, it could get pretty bad during that northward and kind of like north to south motion. As we keep going past this, though, we do see this intense cool down coming in. Again, low between the Great Lakes and Hudson Bay. Pretty classic look. And we get this cold front swinging at the front of it. So this is your main feature. We're kind of going to look at this backwards because the main cause is this surge of warmth out west. We call this a positive P&A. And that's what creates this imbalance. It pushes the warm air northward, which in turn basically shoves that cold air around and back down over the central and eastern states. And that's why we're seeing kind of this type of motion here, where a lot of northerly motion is happening there in the west, a lot of southerly motion is happening there just to the east of it. Let's keep going though, because the trough is going to be fully engulfed in the east by the time we're looking at like the 25th, 26th, and that's going to last for days. We do get a lot of storminess along the southern states, but quite frankly, it is a quieter pattern for most areas. I think these deeper south locations are going to be a little bit more active than normal, but I mean, we're seeing a lot of days like this where it's very dry throughout a majority of the nation, and this happens a lot as we move into September, October, November. It's one of the quieter times of the year as far as continental, inland United States storms. Obviously, we have to worry about the tropics for the coastal locations, and even that can bring rainfall inland, but outside of the tropics, it's typically a lot quieter. As we keep going, we do get this kind of nor'easter type flow where we get these storms forming, swinging around, and ending up trying to move up the East Coast. We've been seeing this continuously on the models. We'll kind of keep track of it for you guys, but really not much in the way of activity. And even when we look at the total precipitation, again, these areas are kind of the highlight here with some above average precipitation, but much quieter than we've seen in previous model runs, especially for like the Northern Rockies, Northern Plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. It's a little spotty in there in some spots, but it is much less active. We are seeing above average precipitation throughout a lot of the West, Northwest, Southwest, a little surprising, and into the Four Corner states and even the Central Plains there. It's important to note the West does not expect to see a lot of precipitation this time of year, so even very small amounts can shove them into the above average kind of category. So it's not going to be like crazy activity likely, but it is going to be enough to be above average for this time of year. Looking at the temperatures from the European model, again, we're warmer to slightly cooler. We're kind of near average, honestly, in the east. Then we see this column of warmth along the west. Again, it's called a positive PNA. And this is just going to ricochet that Arctic blast into the central and eastern states really quickly here. Let's move through. This is, again, the 25th, that date we were noting. 26th here, right here, actually. And again, the greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is significant. 10 to 15 degrees this time of year, to put it in perspective, is going to likely place the temperatures at what would be average a month from now. So you're looking at August 26th, approximately 10 to 15 degrees would be September 26th temperatures, would be a really good way to look at it. For most areas, it's about 8 to 12 degrees. You're going down every month, so that is a loose term, and obviously depends on where you're at, but in general, that's a good way to look at it. These purplish blues are 15 to 25 degrees below normal, and that's where we could be talking about October 26th temperatures on August 26th. So super interesting stuff. Obviously, as we keep going, those cooler temperatures stick around through the 28th, 29th, 30th, and then they start to become a little bit more exclusive for the deeper south areas, where we see the warmth kind of return to a lot of these regions. It's just a bit cooler to the south still. Sometimes this happens, and likely Florida won't be colder than Minnesota. Could be, but probably not. But as we get closer to some of these areas, there's a really good shot that like southern Illinois is much cooler than northern Illinois, but it'll likely rebalance itself eventually. As we kind of move on towards the end of the model run, we actually end up with cooler temperatures in the west, so a negative PNA, and that is why we're seeing a lot of warmth return once we reach kind of past that first few days of September. This is a very long-range estimate, but time will tell, and we'll be watching it closely. I want to show a little bit of a different perspective, though. The GFS model, where we get the same cool down, it's maybe even a little bit more intense here at times, where we see widespread 15 to 25 degrees below normal throughout the Midwest and parts of like the lower Ohio Valley. Here for the 25th, 26th, again, that's where you're looking at like 2 months out is the average temperatures. So again, October temperatures in August for most of these areas. As time goes on, we even get this purplish magenta in the plains and east of the Rockies. That would be significant, 25 to even more degrees below normal. Really brutal for this time of year. And we see that just stick around August 30th, 31st. Doesn't end really as quickly. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. It looks like some warmer temperatures want to move in, but look what happens by the 5th. Still, we're seeing this warm shove up the west, and we actually get another Arctic blast moving right in for September 5th. So while both models agree for the 25th through like the 1st of September, let's call it, so those final few days of August, we get completely opposite perspectives after that point. So that's going to lead to huge question marks for how the conditions are going to be, during that first week of September and beyond. It's just more for us to uncover together, which is a lot of fun. So we're going to be just tracking this moving forward. I'm definitely hoping for this GFS solution. Let me know, though, if you want the warmth to return or if you're hoping for more big cooldowns as we move into September. With all that being said, be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.